I want to welcome you to the first ever broadcast of Do You Know What Time It Is? Now, I'll have to ask you for a little indulgence and a little patience. I spent a lot of years in front of a microphone, but not very many in front of a camera. So you'll have to excuse my awkwardness, but I hope you'll enjoy and be challenged by the content. We have some things coming already that's going to make a difference. And that difference is, oh, let me get my little clock started. And that difference is that we're going to have a better camera, some better microphones, and hopefully improve the broadcast so it'll be a lot easier to hear and hopefully a little better to look at. Uh, we're committed to bringing you stories from around the world in our country you might not hear on broadcast news. I spent a lifetime as a watcher on the wall, and I intend to continue that, but this time with a new twist. I hope to prove to you and to show you that all these events that are happening all over the world, and especially in our country, have all been predicted. Where? In the Bible. Now, before we get to that, let's get to what's going on. Because I don't think that we can start this broadcast or could even begin to ask, do you know what time it is, unless we address the biggest story of my lifetime, I think, beyond 9/11, and that's the attack, the brutal attack on Israel. I don't think words can really compare to what's happened there. I know you said, well, this story has been done. Has it? It's only been 2 weeks. Uh, Let me ask you this. How did you feel 2 weeks after we were attacked? You know what I'm talking about. 9/11, when our world, our America, our country changed forever. And I mean, everything about it changed. The first 2 weeks were pretty horrific. We were sitting back, we were on our heels. We didn't know where to go or which way to turn. So I ask a little indulgence of me because I'm going to bring you some things maybe you heard, but maybe you haven't heard on the things and the atrocities in Israel. And from that, we're going to go to a second invasion, and that's the invasion of America. And let me guarantee you, there is an ongoing invasion of America from our southern border, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Again, my name is Michael. I welcome you to the program if you're just joining us, and we're going to do our best to bring you up to date on the current events. Uh, let's talk about, first of all, Israel's attack. I don't think anybody can disagree. It was one of the most brutal attacks, monstrous attacks of my lifetime. I'm 72 years old. I'm a little bit of a student of history. I don't think I'm completely ignorant, although not formally educated, but I can tell you I've never heard of these kind of atrocities, ever, from anyone, even during the Holocaust. That may have been a much bigger and a wider uh, death toll, but the brutality, I don't think can be matched. Uh, the numbers don't even add up the story, don't even come close. We're talking about 1,400 dead. You've heard that. 3,500 wounded. I'm sure you've heard that. But it's already getting diminished in the media. Do you know what I mean? Part of the story is already starting to kind of settle down. And there's calls even from this administration who sent aircraft carriers, but now they're saying, maybe we better watch this and don't do that. I can tell you, if I'm reading these things correctly, Israel has to go in and has to go in with absolute force and has to stop this because it's not going to stop. There is no two-state solution. Let's just be fair about this. You're dealing with a culture, with a people that are vowed to kill Israel. That's their reason for existence, to annihilate Israel. You've heard the chants all over the country, from the sea, from the river to the sea. They want to banish Israel. They don't want to give Israel a right to even exist. So how do you negotiate with those people? How do you live next to those people? You tell me. I don't know about you. I grew up in Chicago, and I can tell you, I grew up in where there were some gangs, Latin Kings, other gangs. How do you live peaceably with them? You make friends, you give them cookies. What? I mean, get real. Hamas teaches their kids from the earliest age, grammar school, to hate Israel, to hate Jews and glorify their freedom fighters. Freedom fighters, of course, are suicidal, genocidal monsters that kill innocent people. Uh, if I can, and just indulge me just for a few minutes, this story is already losing its traction, as crazy as that sounds. It is. But if you haven't heard, let me give you just a few of the brutalities that happened to the Israeli people. And by the way, not only from Hamas, from the hardcore, well armed, well trained, but did you know this? Here's a part of the story you might not have heard anywhere else. Some of the people that crossed over in that fence and went into those villages and those small towns were actually people who worked in those towns that helped them gather the intel on where people lived, on where their houses were, what their houses looked like. You know, they had books, they found them with all that intel on there. They knew about that big festival, they knew all about it, but they knew all about the homes they attacked because some of the people that worked there were collaborating. And listen to this. They went in with those Hamas regulars and aided in the brutality. That's right. I know everybody wants to separate Hamas from the Palestinian people who are peaceful and fun loving. That's really not true. There may be some. But remember, large majorities voted in Hamas. They like Hamas, they want Hamas. Here's some of the brutalities that were committed to the Israeli people. Wives, young daughters, and grandmas were so violently raped in front of parents, in front of family, that their pelvis bones were broke. No, this isn't hyperbole. These are reports coming out of the coroner's offices in Israel. You know, they're having a hard time even identifying all the bodies. They were so brutalized, so dismembered, so burnt, they're even having trouble getting DNA. This is how, and dental records, they're having trouble identifying these people. They were so brutalized. Children were raped, tortured, and killed in front of their parents. Now let that sink in a bit. Picture your children. That's right. No, picture it. Your children being raped and tortured and killed in front of you. And tell me we've got to use restraint. Married couples and others were bound, their feet bound, sometimes their hands bound, and they were tortured and then burned alive. That's right. This is documented. This is not hyperbole. This isn't some left-wing, right-wing opinion. This isn't politics. This is the brutality, I think, unheard of in my lifetime or anybody's lifetime. Here's one. An unborn child was cut out of his mother. And then this little baby, torn out of the mother, cut open, was beheaded in front of the family. Knives used to kill little children were left in the bodies of the dead children. This has all been verified. There's been documentation. Now, in light of all this, now I want you to put in perspective, if you have any feelings at all, or any sympathies, I should say, at all, for the people, especially, let me say it the way I feel it, the overeducated nitwits in the colleges that are probably the most brainwashed, moronic people on earth. And why do I say that? Because one of the professors at Cornell University, you know what he said? He said, I was exhilarated. That's what he said. I was exhilarated by the attack of Hamas. Now, I don't know what world he's from or what exhilarates him, what be exhilarating about that kind of monstrous brutality. But this is what we're up against. And this is why I venture to say I'm going to show you in the Bible where all this was predicted. Why? Nothing can be this ugly without a force behind it. And if you do believe in God, which I do, you have to believe in an adversary, the devil. And I believe this kind of brutality is demonically motivated. It can't be anything else. And another thing that's demonically motivated, thousands of people all over the world marching for Palestine. Palestine. The Palestinians, let's say it, Hamas, these brutal, unbelievable, murderous monsters, and these educated people, so called, are out there marching. 100,000 in London. That just shows where some of the countries are at. But in San Francisco, New York, all over America, it's happening too. Anti Semitism. I've seen where a young woman who's a president of a Jewish temple was stabbed to death in front of her house. By the way, she was also head of an organization to make Muslim and Jews relationships better in her town. And I'm sure they respected that as they killed her with knives. Now, why this is all going on, why I'm speaking to you, by the way, this day, there's still rockets being fired at Israel. In fact, 8,000 rockets plus have been fired. 8,000. I mean, do you have a concept of that? I mean, how would you like to live your life running the bomb shelters, not having a life, no peace? Do you go to work? Do you send your children to school? I mean, how do you operate in that? I don't know how. In the coming weeks, though, here's what you're going to witness. Now, listen to me. This is my first broadcast, but I guarantee you this will happen. You know why? Because I do believe that, I believe in God, and I believe that He's urging people like me and others to speak out. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I wrote my first paper on Do You Know What Time It Is? In that 6 years ago, I predicted a strong alliance that would happen, that was starting to happen, that would be more profound than you believe, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, that Russia and Turkey and Iran would get together along with some northern African countries like Yemen. And guess what? As you see it today, those countries are working together, not just economically, but militarily. They're helping each other. They have a strong military alliance. I put that in a teaching 6 years ago. Not because I'm so smart, but the Bible is. The Bible said it was going to happen, so it's going to happen. It's happening before your eyes. What's your response? Don't be fooled by the news media. Don't be fooled by right or left or political considerations or even your own compassions, that you want to have compassion on certain people groups. I'm telling you, evil is showing its head and making no mistake about it. You'll see in the coming weeks, the stories are going to turn on Israel, their brutality, their overreaction to this, and how they're brutalizing the poor, innocent Palestinian people. And there are some, but most of them did want Hamas. Don't forget that. And some of them went over through the fence and brutalized those people. But let me read this in Zechariah. This is the point of the show. I'm going to give you world events. I promise you, in the weeks to come and months to come, the Lord tarry, I'm going to give you lots of, I've developed lots of great contacts worldwide, inside stories, things you won't hear even on some of the internet stories. And I'm telling you, I'm going to be bringing them to you. But I guarantee you this is going to happen, what I'm telling you. Then they're going to turn on Israel. And this is why. It's in Zechariah. Everything that's happening, by the way, is in the Bible. Let me just read Zechariah 12, verse 2. It says, Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people, and that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. That means the people that come against Israel will be cut in pieces. Mark my word, they're God's chosen people, like it or not. They have been picked to be the oracles of God. They brought the Bible. They brought the Word of God. They brought the Messiah. It's all been through the Jewish people, and that's why they've been targeted. That's why this unbelievable hatred has gone on. Let me just kind of wrap this up and this portion, because I do want to get to another invasion. And I promise not to spend too much time. I was going to try to make these about 20 minutes long, maybe, give or take, because I know your time is precious. So let me fill it with some more information. There's another invasion that I'm very worried about. It's the invasion of America. Now, the invasion of America isn't going to happen, it's happening. Now, in case you don't know, our southern border is wide open. Now, I know some of you will say, oh, I know that, but it's this or it's that. We have to have compassion. People are just running here for asylum or they need jobs. And some of that is true, but a lot of it isn't. Because let me tell you what's coming across the southern border. By the way, I've did much reporting on this. I've been in Washington, D.C. on 3 different occasions with a group that brought in experts and people, ranchers that lived on the border. I spoke to those ranchers, those families, wonderful, great Americans that lost their own neighbors by helping some of these good people coming over for jobs. What's on the border right now, what's coming through our border, by the way, last 3 years, about 5 million people. No, that's not hyperbole. It's 5 million people. Sex traffickers, terrorists, people from all over the world, from the Middle East, from China, from Russia. Oh, you didn't know that? From China and Russia. Thousands are coming in. And by the way, what about all the people coming through our borders without any medical anything? Do we know they're carrying in diseases? I mean, my grandfather came over, and by the way, through Ellis Island in New York, like most immigrants came into this country, lawfully, legally. And he had to go through Ellis Island. He had to be checked out. He had to have a sponsor, which he did, and he came to Chicago, and he worked hard. He was a Gandy dancer. I don't know if you know what that means, but he worked on the railroad. He busted rail. Tough job, putting in rail and hitting it with a skinny sledgehammer. But he worked hard. And by the way, I never got to meet him because he died when my dad was 13 years old, hit by a car. But he was checked out medically along with everybody else. Are they doing that today? No. They've caught 151 people on the terrorist watch list. Now, these are people from the Middle East, from all over the world. These people are on the terrorist watch list. They've caught them at our border. Now, that's who they caught. There's been 10 times that have gotten away. We know that. It's a fact. Well, I'm making that up. I'm making a political point, right? Well, okay. Not so. It's real simple. Let me tell you what else is coming over the border. This I know. Any expert, talk to some of the people testifying at Congress that they don't televise, of course, and you'll never know about. But there's fentanyl, bulk cash, weapons, hardened criminal, gang members, MS-13. Of course, you've heard of them. That's who's coming across our southern borders in droves. Fentanyl is killing America. Drugs are killing America. There's zombies in Philadelphia and other cities. This new drug called Tranq. Listen, it's all coming across the borders. Okay, now a story maybe you didn't hear about. Did you know that 88,000 Chinese nationals have come through our southern border seeking asylum and 66,000 that have refugee status? And that's what they're telling us about. No, you heard the number right. 88,000 and 66,000, some legally, but most through the southern border. And guess what they're paying? $7,000 to $35,000 to smugglers. Where are they getting that money? These are mostly men of military age, and we're letting them come in to our country. Are you hearing me? Chinese nationals. Think that's all? How about this? Many people, this is documented, but they're not talking about it. I don't know why our other side, the Republicans, aren't talking about it very much, but they're not. Maybe they're so concerned with electing a leader of the House. They can't even get their act together for that. They certainly aren't protecting our country. You're going to find out. I've gone a long way from my days on radio. I trust very little. I trust very few politicians. They've proven to not have my trust and your trust. But here's what's coming across the southern borders. Yet people from Yemen, Afghanistan, Gaza, Syria, and here's a good one, Russia. These are the people coming across our southern border in droves. And what are we doing about it, Buffy? We're open borders. Marcus, got us in charge of all this. He's got this well in hand, doesn't he? Oh, I forgot. And we have, who's that? The vice president, Kamala Harris. She's the czar over it. She couldn't be czar over it. Never mind. If I'm angry, I am. And I'm angry because so many things have happened, but I am going to be a voice as long as they keep me on YouTube. I'm going to bring you events, much more news events than today. Today was kind of an opening salvo, if you will, and help me get used to talking into a camera. But know this, better equipment's coming, better mics are coming, and I hope to improve the broadcast. But here's what I want to end with. This is going on in our country too. I'm telling you, these are things that are going on, and I'm going to have tons of stories like this. Did you know they found a secret Chinese medical laboratory? No, not in Wuhan. In California. That's right. Reedley, California. Google it. It's a medical laboratory. It was replete with bioengineered mice, hazardous pathogens like COVID, and was discovered in a warehouse run by Chinese, of course, if it's a Chinese laboratory. Maybe that's some of those military age 88,000, 66,000 Chinese that have come across our borders. Maybe they're building that laboratory. I'm telling you, watch out. We're coming into the days that are going to be very perilous. We're warned about that in 2 Timothy. That's in the Bible. Perilous times will come, very dangerous times. We're here. I'll have much more to say about this in the future broadcast, but let me kind of close with this. This is what we're looking at today. And I say that because I see the demonstrations all over the world supporting butcherous, monstrous Hamas. But it's no surprise to God, because here's what he predicted. In Isaiah, it said this in the last days. It's going to be like this. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, and put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes. Well, we've got a whole bunch of that. And prudent in their own sight. Too much of that. We are in those days. Good is evil. Evil is good. But we're going to be a watcher on the wall, I promise. Many more news stories. I've got great resources planned. I hope to improve my broadcast with quality, but also with quantity. I'll try not to go too long. There's so much to cover. But I'll bring you stories you won't hear. And I promise to tell you the truth as I know it. And I'll study, and I'll research, and I'll verify. And I just tell you, watch and pray, for your redemption draws nigh. Thank you.